how can you privatize the air, and how can you commodify the air and trade air as a solution to climate change? But that's what the world is doing, and they're buying into that. So as our indigenous peoples who are here lobbying around this issue, trying to get support to have strong language, demanding that there be a moratorium against new fossil fuel development, we're getting resistance. We're getting resistance from the Permanent Forum members. We're getting resistance from all the UN agencies. They're saying, be realistic now. We are being realistic because this is a life and death issue at its core, you know.
By Wednesday evening of the second week, the forum had decided to make a number of additions and revisions to this text in order to respond to these concerns. And on Friday morning, when we came to the moment of adopting the report, the rapporteur, Mr. Dodson, read out these changes, additions.
The bottom line is paragraph 5 and paragraph 37 were not deleted.
That the Permanent Forum did not find or could not make space and opportunity to listen to the peoples who have come there, to the leaders, to the elders who came there, and was seen to somewhat go override some of these important petitions and interventions and statements and information provided in order to come to conclusions which were not found acceptable to many of us all over the world. This is a very, very concerning aspect.
Let me start with paragraph 5, which is one of the paragraphs that people were mentioning. So in paragraph 5, the second sentence reads as follows: these mechanisms must respond to the needs of indigenous peoples and include them as partners in designing and implementing programs, etc. It does not say these mechanisms respond to the needs. It says they must respond to the needs.
The Clean Energy Investment Framework is an initiative of the World Bank. Carbon trading is bad for the South, bad for the North, bad for the climate, as well as for the Mother Earth.
Who controls the World Bank? You know, you have to think about that.
The bigger changes, I guess, responding to the big concerns of indigenous organizations were made in paragraph 37. So at the end of paragraph 37, the forum added the sentence: the Permanent Forum calls on all parties to ensure that the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples is implemented when undertaking these processes. So the declaration is a condition for anything that is done, is the standard. This is the point of the forum.
The consultations that took place between indigenous peoples and the World Bank are not valid.
Este párrafo debe ser totalmente eliminado. Primero porque se dice que después de una consulta con pueblos indígenas, y hay que ser claro, nunca a nosotros nos han consultado nada.
If people walk out of a consultation, obviously they're not in agreement.
Entonces, ¿por qué? ¿Quién o quiénes son los que están escribiendo este reporte o este draft?
8 representatives representing states who've been appointed by states, I should say, and 8 Permanent Forum members who are indigenous, and I'm one of them, representing particular regions. But we are, in effect, independent experts, and there should be a little clarity on that in terms of our positions.
And we're hoping that they remain independent and not, there's nobody there to impose certain state policies on the forum. You know, I think we have to And I think they've been doing a pretty good job of being independent. I think they could still be a little bit more independent, and I think they could be better to push the United Nations and push states a bit harder.
Well, when you're part of a structure, you are responsible for keeping the rules and the rules of procedure and engagement according to the institution you are now a part of. So the Permanent Forum members and the Secretariat must work within that framework, and we must balance everything that comes to our attention, whether it's government recommendations or thoughts or comments, and certainly the priority of Indigenous peoples, UN agencies.
You know, people spend a lot of money, a lot of time over the 2 weeks to get their statements in. People want those things reflected, you know, and in a very expert way. And I guess that's what makes them experts, is they're supposed to be able to take that stuff and put it out in a format that they know the people will be satisfied with. So the Indigenous people will be satisfied with. So.
And then the forum added 2 paragraphs, paragraph 41 and 42,
which the Permanent Forum tried to balance in terms of the Articles 5 and 37, which Indigenous delegates were not happy with.
Paragraph 41 that was added reads as follows: the Permanent Forum recommends that the renewed political focus on forests stimulate. And the other paragraph 42 that was added: the Permanent Forum notes that the current framework for reduced emissions from deforestation and degradation, RED, is not supported by most Indigenous peoples. It is argued that existing RED proposals reinforce centralized top-down management of forests and undermine Indigenous peoples' rights. This is the text that has been added.
Okay. We will give you the floor after we finish our business.
After the forum heard the statement of this group of representatives, Indigenous representatives, the forum's chair made a very long explanation of the forum's changes in the text, explaining the philosophy and explaining very much that the forum considers the declaration as the standard, the minimum standard that has to be followed for anything that has to do actually with climate change and Indigenous peoples. And while the chair was making these explanations, we also photocopied and made available to everybody in the room the text that was added orally by the rapporteur. These revisions, we made them available to the whole room so that everybody would be able to see more clearly things that sometimes, you know, it's difficult to capture everything when it's read, especially long paragraphs which were added.
These people, they sat and they read and they digested the report, and so they knew, you know, they were concerned about it. So.
In this parliamentary process that the forum wants to be and wants to welcome everybody's participation, that everything is clear, transparent, and available to every participant.
No, as far as I can see, they just proceeded with the last item that they were dealing with, and this is why I'm saying is that, you know, they may proceed with what they had approved up to that point. But the thing is that the credibility of the report is seriously questioned by this particular objection that was made very forcefully and very clearly. You know, so it's with that grain of salt that you need to read the report now because it has that dimension to it, you know. So, and I'm just saying, next year, do you want the same kind of objections again?
We're getting resistance from all the UN agencies. They're saying, be realistic now. We are being realistic because this is a life and death issue at its core, you know.
By Wednesday evening of the second week, the forum had decided to make a number of additions and revisions to this text in order to respond to these concerns. And
how can you privatize the air, and how can you commodify the air and trade air as a solution to climate change? But that's what the world is doing, and they're buying into that. And against new fossil fuel development, we're getting resistance. We're getting resistance from the permanent forum members. So as our indigenous peoples who are here lobbying around this issue, trying to get support to have strong language, demanding that there be a moratorium